Hi, I'm Ethan Nosowsky. I'm at City Lights bookstore in San Francisco, and I'm reading a passage from Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time. This book was challenged for undermining religious beliefs and the dangerous possibility that it might challenge readers' idea of God, which is fairly ironic because Madeleine L'Engle was a person of deep and abiding faith. I had the really great privilege of meeting her when I was a young editor and worked for Robert Giroux, who edited her adult books at Farrar, Straus and Giroux. And I asked, you have one chance, and I asked L'Engle about A Wrinkle in Time, which had been rejected by about 30 publishers, not for being dangerous, but for being unpublishable, which of course it wasn't. And she took great and slightly perverse pride in the fact that the book had been continually challenged and banned in schools. And I asked her why, and I think she said, because it's witchy. People think it's witchy, and it encourages people's use of the imagination. So apparently these things were dangerous, and she liked that her book was dangerous for those reasons. So I'm going to read a brief passage here from pretty close to the, sort of towards the beginning of the book. This is about Meg, the protagonist. Meg was pleased and a little surprised when the twins were excited at having Calvin for supper. They knew more about his athletic record and were far more impressed by it than she. Calvin ate 5 bowls of stew, 3 saucers of Jell-O, and a dozen cookies. And then Charles Wallace, her brother, insisted that Calvin take him up to bed and read to him. The twins, who had finished their homework, were allowed to watch half an hour of TV. Meg helped her mother with the dishes, and then sat at the table and struggled with her homework, but she could not concentrate. Excuse me. "Mother, are you upset?" Meg asked suddenly. Mrs. Murray looked up from a copy of an English scientific magazine through which she was leafing. For a moment she did not speak. Then, "Yes." "Why?" asked Meg. Again Mrs. Murray paused. She held her hands out and looked at them. They were long and strong and beautiful. She touched with the fingers of her right hand the broad gold band on the 3rd finger of her left hand. "I'm still quite a young woman, you know," she said finally. "Though I realize that's difficult for you children to conceive. And I'm still very much in love with your father. I miss him quite dreadfully." "And you think all this has something to do with father?" "I think it must have." "But what?" "That I don't know, but it seems the only explanation." "Do you think things always have an explanation?" asked Meg. "Yes, I believe they do, but I think that with our human limitations, we're not always able to understand the explanations. But you see, Meg, just because we don't understand doesn't mean that the explanation doesn't exist." "I like to understand things," Meg said. "We all do, but it isn't always possible." "Charles Wallace understands more than the rest of us, doesn't he?" "Yes." "Why?" "I suppose because he's different, Meg." "Different how?" "I'm not quite sure. You know yourself he's not like anybody else." "No, and I wouldn't want him to be," Meg said defensively. "Wanting doesn't have anything to do with it. Charles Wallace is what he is. Different. New." "New?" "Yes, that's what your father and I feel." Meg twisted her pencil so hard that it broke. She laughed. "I'm sorry. I'm really not being destructive. I'm just trying to get things straight." "I know. But Charles Wallace doesn't look different from anybody else." "No, Meg, but people are more than just the way they look. Charles Wallace's difference isn't physical. It's an essence." Meg sighed heavily, took off her glasses, and twirled them, put them back on again. "Well, I know Charles Wallace is different, and I know he's something more. I guess I'll just have to accept it without understanding it." Thanks.